This message is for our president, our Joe Biden, our Vice President Kamala Harris, and our congressional leaders, which are Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, and Senate Leader Mitch McConnell. As you know, our nation has been divided, has been in a state of division now for some time. It's been more evident now, as of late, than before. And I believe that as leaders of this great country, the responsibility falls on you, especially our congressional leaders, to do what is necessary to bring the restoration of our country back to normalcy. One of the things that has prompted me to record this is the fact that I discovered there was a letter that was sent, that was signed by multiple state attorneys general, including the Attorney General from my state of Texas, Ken Paxton. And as such, it prompted me to record this, and I'm hoping that before you've made any decision on this letter, that you take what I'm saying seriously and give it very great consideration from what I'm about to say. As you know, our country has been divided for the longest time. Our country has been marred in controversies, especially when it comes to the pandemic and to the election process. Ever since the federal election of November 2020, when the previous administration kept insisting that there was election fraud, when multiple judges and multiple courts, including the Supreme Court, I believe, said no, there was no election fraud, and they denied wanting to hear the cases because there was no probable evidence, I believe was what they said. That was one of the biggest controversies at that time. And now you have the fact that you have states that are passing election legislation. Georgia, for example, marred in controversy, one, because of the manner in which the bill was signed, the setting in which it was signed, who was present, the background, that picture that was in the background, even the laws that were signed in that bill. There was one that was so ridiculous, you couldn't give a bottle of water to a person standing in line to vote. You know, it defies logic. I don't know who the brain was, pardon me for asking, that created that idea, that created that law. Honestly, I don't know what the purpose is. I mean, there's no express purpose in denying somebody a bottle of water. That's the way I see it. I'm trying to be neutral. I'm not looking at any Republican perspective or any Democratic perspective. When I see that law, I'm like, what difference does a bottle of water make? I think you should think about that. Okay? Texas is another example. Texas passed another set of election laws in SB 1 recently. Those laws created a massive amount of controversy. I mean, from what was said in the media and what was verified in interviews, the Republican Party in my state was so resistant that they would not compromise with the House Democrats in Austin. They refused. They literally, from what I've seen in the news, and I mean, it's hard not to believe it, they literally blew off hours and hours of testimony against the bill. Why? They even, in a couple of the compromises they made, went back on them when it went back into the Senate and said no. It forced the House Democrats to break quorum, something that, if you know Texas history, has rarely been done. I think only once or twice before, but it had never been done for this length of time. Now their motive for breaking quorum, the reasoning, and the fact that it took forever, well, not forever, but it took almost more than a month for them to go back to Austin. That in itself, if you're looking at it from a higher up, in your case as a federal legislator, that should be an immense red flag. This is the way I see it, a law that is going to be passed in a state legislature should not be marred in controversy to that extent. To be marred that way means that hello, light bulb, there's got to be something about that bill that's not right. And as such, as legislators on the federal level, it is your responsibility to examine that and implement the necessary laws, rules, guidelines to prevent anything like that from occurring again. The fact that you haven't done that, or that the Congress is at an impasse when it comes to that, shows the division that there is. History shows one of the greatest divisions to date in U.S. Congress is immigration. I mean, I can't give you a much more broader and more specific instance of division. Congress has always been divided on the subject. But what's happening now is that there's so much division going on. You've got one party fighting against the other. It's not let's work together and pass what the laws that are necessary to our country. It's we've got to stop this administration. We got to do this. This administration. You're basically putting down another entity instead of doing what you need to do. Focus on the betterment of the country. And that's the reason for me recording this and sending you this message, is because I believe now is the time that as leaders of this country, you need to set your party ideals, party principles, and beliefs aside and legislate with conscience. Pass legislation that is necessary for the restoration and the betterment of our country. Doing that means that basically ignoring what your party beliefs are, ignoring what your party principles are, and focusing on, okay, what needs to be done to improve, what needs to be done to restore this country back to a relative degree of normalcy. That has not been happening. I've seen in the news that, especially in the U.S. House, the Republicans, Kevin McCarthy, and the House Republicans spend more time bickering against the other party, against Democrats, than ever trying to get anything done. That has to stop. As leaders as congressional leaders of this great country, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed that you have not been able to get anything accomplished. You should be ashamed that you're playing political fights with your respective legislators on the other side of the aisle, when you should be focusing on getting this country back on track. It's a downright shame to see our legislators fighting and bickering in both houses. You've got elected officials going on some weird expeditions, trying to correct some issues that don't even need to be corrected. You need to take the time to work on restoring the country. Unless you do that, this country is not going to recover, and it's going to continue in the trajectory it's going. It's going into hell in a handbasket because nobody's doing a damn thing. And as leaders, you should be ashamed of it. You need to get on track. You need to set your differences aside and let's get on restoring this country back to the way it is. If you need to pass items like the John Lewis Act, if you need to pass mask mandates, if you need to pass vaccine mandates, if you need to pass legislation to set the standard for states to follow, then so be it. Do it. That's what needs to be done. Something needs to be done to restore this country, and it's you as leaders that are responsible. Especially, and I'm calling you out, Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell. You spend more time fighting the administration, bad-mouthing the president and the vice president, when you should be working together to a common goal. You need, pardon me for being so blunt, but you need to cut the crap and you need to get yourselves back on track. And if it means setting aside your political beliefs and your ideals, do it. Otherwise, we as Americans are going to get to the last straw, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to vote your sorry butts out. And it would be a downright shame that it has to come to that. When right now you can do the right thing, set your differences aside, and work on restoring this great country. It needs to be done. Now's the time. I don't need to see President Biden signing executive orders overriding the Congress simply because Congress doesn't want to do its dang job. We had enough of that with Obama. We had enough of that with Donald Trump. It should be the Congress working together, passing the legislation so that the president can sign it and get this country back on track. That is not happening. It needs to start. We need to start the road to recovery, to restoration. And only you as leaders in agreement can do that. Get off your butts, get together in agreement, and let's get this country and restore it back to normalcy. Thank you, and God bless America.